Hi, I'm Sid Blue. At a 4-day writer's retreat in the mountains, I met a top agent and editor in children's publishing. We're lucky such kind, compassionate people are bringing new books into the world. I just thought they were such awesome people. I asked them to carve out a few minutes to make an ad hoc video to answer some of your questions. Here they are.
Hi, I'm Sara Schonfeld. I'm an associate editor at Katherine Tegan Books, an imprint of HarperCollins. I work on children's books ages 0 to 18 as an editor, and all my thoughts here are just my own opinions.
And I'm Brent Taylor. I'm a literary agent at TriadaUS, and I also do books aged 0 to 18, and I particularly love middle grade and young adult fiction.
How do agents and editors work together?
Part of agenting and editing is we get to know each other, and sort of having that conversation is really where it all kicks off. So a book doesn't necessarily start the relationship. It might start over coffee or over a meeting in the office, because agents work so hard and so much of what they do is matchmaking. So they have to sort of know what I'm looking for, maybe even before I really do. And I'm always so impressed by agents when they really discover what my vibe is and what I'm looking for in a story. And then that goes all the way up past publication. I mean, really anytime an author has a question, agents are such a useful resource. They know so much of what's going on, and they're able to give us that question and sort of feed it through in a way that works with my schedule and makes it so much easier for me, and really distills it. So I'm so grateful for all the incredible agents out there.
Yes, it's a great relationship, and such an important one in the publishing process, because I'm the author's advocate on our side of things, and then the editor is the author's advocate at the publishing house. And I just love working with editors so much. I champion my books to the best of my ability, to sell them to a publisher, and to get the best terms possible. And then, I'm blown away by the editors that I work with, that, they are advocating in-house, to get their team to love the book as much as they do, and to support the book and publish it in the best possible way. And I am in awe of all that editors have to juggle. I mean, not only being very creative with the author and bringing out the best parts of the story and making it such an excellent read, but from there, just the business elements that the editor has to take care of. The editor is fielding publicity and marketing requests, and dealing with all sorts of sales and rights questions and payment questions. And I really value the agent-editor relationship, where we both know that we're advocating, for an author's best interests, and thinking about, how we can publish this author in the, beautiful way that their work deserves.
When a writer finishes writing a book, what should they do next?
My advice for a writer after they have finished writing their book is to slow themselves down and to start pressing the brakes, because I think that I get a lot of submissions from writers that are so passionate and excited to be published, and they have to remember that it's so important that they put their absolute best work forward. And the most successful book is one that is just in incredible shape, and very clean, and just the author's best work. And so I would encourage writers to remember that book publishing will be here for you when your book is ready, and to, after you finish it, take a step away from it. Take maybe 2 weeks or 4 weeks and go read books or write a new project, and then come back to it with fresh eyes. And then I would also say to share your work with others before you try to share it with agents and editors. So, find critique partners or beta readers to give you feedback on your work before you start the publishing process.
Yeah, I think that's really excellent advice. I always say the books will still be there, which someone took as a threat. Like the books
Yes.
are watching you, but the books will be there, and I think it's not a race. There's no time pressure. And I got this really great advice from a creative writing teacher, which was treat your book like it's a pie that you took out of the oven, and you have to let it cool. You're not going to be able to read it with fresh eyes when you've just finished writing it. Getting critique partners is excellent. And reading also, I think that helps me when I'm stuck and I'm trying to figure out what's the convention of the genre. There's nothing wrong with following things the way they've been done. But reading, talking to other people about your book, and giving it a little bit of time.
Tell me about a book you read as a kid that stayed with you in some way.
I still find myself thinking of lines from books that I read when I was a kid, and nothing specific, but I'll have a moment where I'll think in that character's voice, or I'll have that piece of advice that I heard from a story. Maybe a character was going through something much harder than me. They were going on some magical journey or actually facing something hard, and I'm just trying to get the strength to go out in the cold. But I do think the words that we learn stick with us, and we're each going through our own difficult times, and if another character has triumphed, I can triumph over my hard day too.
I think that now that I've had time to think about it, the book that really changed me and always changes me every time I read it is Charlotte's Web by E.B. White, which is like just such a beautiful novel. And when I read it as a kid, I obviously cried when Charlotte died. And then now that I've reread the novel as an adult, I think what is so special about that book and what changed me as a kid reader is that you realize that since Wilbur loses Charlotte, he has experienced the worst thing you can imagine, which is your loved one passing away. And I think that when you get to the end of Charlotte's Web and Wilbur is still grieving the loss of Charlotte, but he is loving Charlotte's children and making new friends and experiencing joy and allowing himself to experience joy, you're reminded that humans and pigs, for that matter, do have the capacity to bear the unbearable. Even if your loved one passes away, you're able to still find joy and love in life. And that was one element of that book that just completely changed me and still brings me comfort when I read it.
When I speak to kids at schools, it's really common for them to come up and say they want to be a writer. It happens a lot. And I was just wondering what you think it is in the human spirit that makes us all want to connect in this way, and what advice would you have for them?
I think sharing stories makes us feel less alone. I think there's the saying, misery loves company, but it goes beyond that. For me, the saying misery loves company means that when you realize that other people are dealing with the same issues and emotions that you're dealing with, it makes you feel more empowered to work through them and to push through and to pull yourself through the darkness. And so I think that's a big reason why we love sharing stories. And it just connects all of us. And it reminds us, it's so easy to feel isolated in your own body and in your own head, especially coming out of the pandemic. And I think sharing stories is just a reminder of how interconnected we all are. And we have such different experiences and such universal experiences at the same time. And stories show us that. I think especially now that we are publishing such an amazing range of voices from different backgrounds and marginalized identities, there's something about the specificity of those cultures and stories that is great. But I think that the more you dig into the specifics of a culture, the more you realize how universal the human experience all is. And that to me is like just the most spectacular thing about storytelling.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I guess what I have to add to that is I think everyone really does have a book inside of them. And I know that writing isn't easy and it's hard to become an author, but when you put that pencil to paper or you start typing or you start recording a voice memo, you are becoming an author. And I think my biggest piece of advice is, your story deserves time, your story deserves love, and do give it that, attention. It is worth something and you do belong sort of on a bookshelf one day. In terms of advice for young writers, I guess I would say number one is read. Read every book you can get. Go to the library, download an audiobook. Just see what's out there, see what stories resonate with you, see what maybe you could do better than another author. I think there's a hesitancy for kids sometimes to say, well, this is published and this is serious, this person deserves attention, and maybe you can do it better. Maybe there's something they missed that you know better. So I'd say, read, listen, check out books.
What are you looking for, and what are the trends right now?
We were both just talking earlier about how we love literary Greek mythology books. I think all mythology books from different cultures. And I particularly love novels that feel upmarket. So books that have a great high concept that would appeal to a very wide commercial audience, but that have very beautiful literary writing. That's like the dream book.
Yeah, I totally agree that high concept really helps, especially in the YA field. And being able to pitch your book and find that strong elevator pitch that has details about the plot and also the character's emotional arc really helps set it aside and gives us a really good sense of what your readership is. So I would say one of the great things you can do as an author is think about ways to pitch your book, but also, what your agent or your editor might use as a pitch one day.
Tell me about an upcoming book you worked on.
So some of my favorite projects, as an editor, I love all my projects and I'm so excited to see them hit shelves. But the next two that I have a middle grade and a YA coming out this summer that were some of my early acquisitions on the team. So they're very special to me. And I acquired a teen book called How to Date a Superhero and Not Die Trying, which has such a beautiful elevator pitch. It literally is what it says on the tin. And then I'm really excited. I have a middle grade from Ali Malinenko we were talking about. She's a debut author that I started working with. And this will be her second book. It's called This Appearing House, and it's a spooky middle grade that deals with the experience of having had cancer and how children can learn to grieve and move on, which I think is really important to have humor and heart in your horror.
I'm really excited about a middle grade novel called The Language of Seabirds by Will Taylor. It's coming out in July. And it's a novel about two middle school boys who fall in love during a summer break. They live in a beach town in Oregon, and their shared language is talking about the birds that are on the coast. And it's just a beautifully written novel, and the emotions just pour off the page. And I'm, out of all the books that I have coming up, that one is probably the most special to me. And it's just gorgeously written.